Let's shift the focus now to here on Israel and Jerusalem, where the latest in a series of protests is now taking place by members of Israel's ultra-Orthodox community, who are known here as the Haredi. The Haredi demonstrations are protests against the phenomena of young ultra-Orthodox Jews choosing to serve in the army rather than exercising a draft exemption that allows them to continue full-time religious studies. Extremist Haredi elements consider military service a violation of their religious way of life, and ultra-Orthodox soldiers have become victims of harassment in their own community. Well, let's go now live to that Jerusalem protest, and our reporter there, Mike Wagenheim. Mike, what are you hearing and seeing there in Jerusalem at that protest?
Well, for about the last hour and a half, it's been a lot of speeches being given by leaders of this particular faction of the Haredi community, the Jerusalem faction. So they've been giving speeches related to the members of the faction here, stressing that this faction will not accept the drafting of their children. They call them into the army here. This is a faction that does not recognize the state of Israel as the Jewish homeland. They say there is no army of the Jewish people here in Israel, and they would rather go to prison than accept a draft into the army. There's been a number of arrests of members of this faction within the last couple of weeks, protests as a result throughout the country, not only in Jerusalem, but in places like Bnei Brak and Petah Tikva that have times become violent. There's a lot of police out in full force here tonight to make sure that this protest here does not turn violent tonight. We'll see how things go. The speeches are still being given back behind us. You can probably hear them in the background, but an official protest is about to get underway here shortly.
Mike, we should clarify that these young people all around you don't have to do the army service. They can exercise an exemption, but they are even against members of the community volunteering or even going to the draft office and getting that exemption. Isn't that an issue?
It's a very important distinction. There are a lot of members of the Haredi community, in fact, those under the auspices of political parties like United Torah Judaism and Shas that get those exemptions, get those deferments while they're in yeshiva, but they must register with the army. Now, this Jerusalem faction says we're not even going to register, and that's where they're getting themselves into trouble with the law right now. That's resulted in the arrest of a number of members of this faction. So it is an important distinction to make. There are many in the Haredi community that recognize the army, that recognize Israel as a Jewish homeland. This particular faction does not, and that is the most important distinction to make right now.
Mike, do any of those young people near you, next to you, speak any English? I'd like to just hear from them, if they do, why they're protesting.
They're protesting mainly the draft. These children have been told that the draft is not a legal entity within this community, that they would rather go to prison than go into the army here. In fact, a member of the community said the Israel government needs to build more prisons because they can expect more prisoners. They can expect more people to be arrested because they're simply not going to go to the army. It doesn't matter what the military police do. It doesn't matter what the Israeli police do. They can imprison all of them. They're not going no matter what. They refuse to recognize the legitimacy of the Israeli army and the Israeli government.
Mike, I could see that they're blocking a main intersection in Jerusalem. A couple of weeks ago, such a protest almost disrupted the Jerusalem Marathon. Do you see any police presence there?
There's a ton of police presence. You really can't see it because of the members of the community here behind us, but just in front of us, behind our television camera, is where a large contingent of police have gathered here. They are expecting trouble tonight and can't really blame them based on what's happened lately. They are hoping for the best. However, they are expecting the worst here tonight. Full force. The area is completely cordoned off. It's been cordoned off now for about an hour and a half. There is no traffic being let through. The only people out on the streets right now are the people of the community here.
Mike Wagenheim, keep us posted. If anything develops there, of course, we'll come back to you in Jerusalem. Well, I want to turn back now to our senior security correspondent, Shai Ben-Ari. Briefly, Shai, let's just clarify. There's this protest of ultra-Orthodox in the army, but we're only really talking about hundreds or maybe low thousands, correct?
Right. The vast majority of ultra-Orthodox are indeed exempted. They're perhaps required to register, but they get that exemption. Still, The reason that we're seeing these protests is because numbers are on the rise in terms of the amount of ultra-Orthodox who do enlist. At the moment, there are over 6,000. That's more than ever before currently enlisted in the IDF. And numbers have been rising because the IDF is also meeting them halfway, in a sense, in terms of making conditions more convenient for them, making it more possible, really, for ultra-Orthodox to serve in the army. They say word is getting out that it's possible to have this, that it's compatible, and that's why more are agreeing to go as well.
And what do these ultra-Orthodox actually do in the army? Some of them actually, they're not just serving in offices and doing paperwork, yes? Some of them are almost
Indeed.
combat units.
Several hundred are involved in combat units. These are specially designated units that you only have ultra-Orthodox soldiers in these units so that they can maintain their very unique sort of lifestyle and somehow combine it with military service. You can understand it's not a simple affair. You have to observe the Sabbath. There are prayer times that have to be respected, all sorts of special conditions. The Army has made a special effort to sort of meet them halfway to make this possible at all. And that's why we are seeing a number that is on the rise in terms of enlistment, and that's why we're also seeing a lot of anger.
Well, there are certainly no atheists in these foxholes of the Israeli army. Shai Ben-Aria, Senior Security Correspondent, thanks for joining us.